Indonesia clearly has a really ambitious skills reform program. Australia's got some particular strengths when it comes to vocational education and training. Really relevant industry-based training and train-the-trainer opportunities are two particular areas where Australian TAFEs have strength that they can work with Indonesian partners to help them develop their own system. For me, it almost acts as a talisman for the relationship. So it gives profile to the relationship, it highlights areas of strength from Australia, and it highlights areas of need for Indonesia, and it gives profile. So I think the IA-SEPA as a first step gives us access that we wouldn't have had previously because that partnership now has some attention from senior levels of both the Australian government and the Indonesian government. We've got some very active TAFEs working and operating in Indonesia, and they have for many years. We have TAFE Queensland, who have a relationship with the Central Java provincial government, and they're providing things like train-the-trainer programs to trainers within Central Java. Another example is Melbourne Polytechnic, who have a really strong relationship in music production in a part of Indonesia, where they're offering training to people working within the industry in Indonesia, but they're also bringing students here to Melbourne to deliver full Australian Qualifications Framework training in music production. So it's a sustainable partnership in one particular industry sector. Those sorts of relationships have been going for quite some time. They're strong, they're sustainable, they're in niche areas of expertise and areas of need in Indonesia. That type of model that I've just described across TAFE Queensland and across Melbourne Polytechnic is probably the type of model that TAFEs who aren't as engaged in Indonesia are aspiring to access. What that model does is allow TAFEs to do what they do best. So what TAFEs do best is in creating training courses that are appropriate for the needs of a particular cohort, whether that's existing workers, whether that's trainers, or whether that's students who are entering a training experience for the first time. And it also allows Indonesia to have programs that are targeted at the particular need that they have at that point in time. Like many countries in Asia, there's some principles that we need to make sure that we're operating by. One of it, of course, is presence and sustainability. So you can't just waltz into Indonesia on a mission and think that you're going to then waltz back out of there with 2 or 3 business opportunities. You need to make sure that you're building relationships within Indonesia over a long-term basis. If I look at the work that TAFE Queensland's done, for example, particularly in Central Java, that's been the result of at least half a dozen years of work in building a relationship with the government in Central Java and using things like the Australia Awards in order to be financially viable in the first instance, and now they're coming to a point where that relationship is commercially sustainable. And so it needs to be a sustained presence over a period of time. The other key factor for success is actually really understanding where Indonesia's at in terms of their skilling system, the areas that we shouldn't touch, and then understanding how we can make sure we have a product or an offer that's tailored to the needs of Indonesia that's going to be successful for us as a group of providers. I think one of the things it did really nicely that hasn't been done previously is actually summarise activity across all of the 4 sectors in Australia. And by 4 sectors, I mean higher education, vet, ALICOS and schools. It very nicely showcased some case studies of successful operation in Indonesia. And that's really important because it means other providers can start to think about replicating those successful case studies and accessing those types of opportunities when they're moving into country.